You.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dominic. Thank you so much, the DC chapter, for having me. I am super, super excited to be here. And what a crowd, right? All over the world. I truly, truly love that. So, to Dominic's point, I try to come in with a variety of different topics for any conversation that I end up having. And I would like to make it a little interactive if possible. So please, go ahead and chat away your questions or comments and, just participate in the dialogue. To be very honest with you, this is going to be recorded, so you will have the material with you. But what you want to walk away today is actually the experience you're going to get with a dialogue with your peers. So let's go ahead and get started. My name is Riddhi Gupta, and I am a podcaster, keynote speaker, huge advocate for D&I. But let me tell you a little bit about my background. I moved from India about 22 years ago to Charlotte, North Carolina. I went to college here, met my husband, and am married with two young kids. So been in Charlotte area for over 20 years. And the past decade or so, I've been really focusing on global transformations. But my background started in computer science. So I was a computer science major. I went into coding, testing products, as well as testing systems. I really do believe that gave me the foundation for being able to understand features, functionality, and products more. And to be very fair, I really am able to use that experience in everything that I do today. So having started from that background, I climbed through the ranks and became a project manager, got my PMI certification, and that was one of the toughest exams I have taken. So kudos to all of you who are either preparing for it or have been PMI certified. I went into the field of Agile for about more than a decade ago. So I got my Scrum Master certification, and then I became a Lean Agile coach. And then to the point that I made earlier, started leading teams as well as organizations into a newer way of working. So currently my focus is on people, product, and organizational agility. I am working for a firm, Centricity Solutions. I am the head of their transformation practice as well as delivery. Other than that, I'm also the lead and founder of Women in Agile for the Charlotte metro area. It is a nonprofit. It is a part of the bigger domestic group. We are nonprofit, really a platform for women and allies to get together and share knowledge and really learn and grow. I'm also the founding member of Agile Week Carolinas and Florix Conference. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. But enough about me. Let's talk about why you're here today, right? So there is a big push in the industry to be really able to go back to what I call is customer centricity. So when I was, in college, I had a job at the mall, and the one thing that I learned, or the first thing I learned, was that customer is king or queen. They're always, always right. Right. So it's really about focusing on what the customer wants and needs. So fast forward, more than 2 decades, and we are going back to that. I don't think we kind of lost that, if you will, during the course of our progress, but I do believe that we shifted or pivoted and started focusing a little bit more on the process and tools, and really moved away from what matters most, and that is customer, right? Business value. And over the course of 2 decades, I have realized that there are a couple of key elements that we really need to think about and, quite honestly, focus on when we're talking about business value. So real quickly in the chat, if you don't mind indulging me, when I say business value, and if you are a customer, what does that mean to you? What does value mean to you? I like that. It depends. Money, delivering what I want, something that is useful to me. Very good. Give me one more. Customer service, product quality. Love it, love it. Number of clients, value from money, customer expectations. I love that. Something I can rely on. Ooh, I like that. I'll be talking about that in just a second. Very cool. So let's move forward. So this is a little use case study I did with my family. So I am married and I have two kids. I have a 7-year-old and an almost 13-year-old. What I did was, and I'm a nerd when it comes to, project management as well as agile development, as well as product development. I showed them these brands, if you will, to my family. Right. So for those of you who are not familiar, Publix is actually a grocery store chain in the Carolinas. Everybody knows Netflix. I hope everybody knows Chick-fil-A, Disney World, as well as Apple. So what I did was I actually asked them what these brands really meant to them, right? So real quickly, let's take a quick look here. So for my 7-year-old, the Apple products meant they're fun. It's a very good brand, she said. For my almost 13-year-old, he felt they're trendy, they're safe to use, they're convenient. And for my husband, he said, well, they're cutting edge and innovative. So kind of go through this with me a little bit, right? So for Disney World, for my 7-year-old, it meant magical, right? For my 12, 13-year-old son, it meant emotions and sentiments. And for my husband, it meant great customer service, great experience. The reason I bring this to the forefront is because somebody mentioned what value meant, and they said, well, it depends, right? What does it depend on? It depends on your customer. So for me, value can mean totally different from how you define value for the same product. And that's exactly what we need to focus on. We need to focus on what it means to the customer. So I concluded from this quick study that value meant customer delight and retention in terms of if the customer is going to go back to that product, to that brand, right? It also meant what the value proposition is. And some of you actually put in the chat that value in terms of money, value in terms of if I can rely on it, value in terms of customer experience. So the value proposition has to be accounted for when you're looking for product delivery or feature delivery. The other thing I concluded is continuous evolution of features, right? It's great that I have an iPhone 1, but iPhone 12 is better, right? So we're continuously evolving as to what our customer wants in terms of being able to solve for their problems. So there needs to be a roadmap of really strategically building features based on market disruptions as well as customer needs. The other thing I concluded was that there has to be a progress in a way over perfection. Now, I love my, phone, my smartphone, but there are times I feel it's either too bulky or it's too big, it doesn't fit in my pockets. So there has to be a room built in to be able to absorb those demands and those needs to be able to show progress. So I'm glad that there is a market out there which is a little bit more nimble. Now, the whole Agile movement, which has been going on for the past 20 or so years, I really feel that goes back to really being able to solve for customer problems. So at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're obviously looking at that continuous exploration of feature development. And the last thing I concluded from my little quick study that I did with my family was we want to be a little bit more socially conscious, right? We want to be able to create products as well as promote features that align with the ethical and, dare I say, moral values of our customers. So there needs to be a little bit more focus on putting yourself in the customer's shoes when you're developing products. And quite honestly, all those dimensions I shared with you in brief, that is really the product mindset. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a minute and kind of explore further the different aspects of the product mindset, because it is so important for us to understand that as we go about developing products and features. But now, before I do that, I have a question for you. Again, use the chat feature here. When I say product mindset, what does that mean to you? And no, you cannot Google it. And look at my LinkedIn where I've posted things about product mindset. How it relates to the customer, very good. Expectations, features, yeah. All right, permanent team, delivering value, Sustainability, build and support. I love that. Give me one more. Service. Very true. Very true. So kind of moving along here, the one thing I want to focus on when it comes to product mindset is agility. Now, make sure you understand that I'm not saying agile. I'm not talking framework. I'm not talking process. I'm not talking tools. I'm not talking workflow systems like Jira or, version one or Rally. It's really about creating nimbleness. It's about ensuring that there is flexibility being built in understanding what the customer wants on a periodic basis. So some of the concepts of agility, which really stuck to me when I was talking about product mindset, is about building a backlog. It's about making sure that there is a runway when it comes to developing new products to be able to address ongoing customer needs. It's about pivoting when needed, right? It's about making sure that there is an opportunity for us to go back to the drawing board if needed. And that is how I explain agility from a product perspective. The other thing that I want to focus on is the vision, right? So when you are actually in the process of creating a product, it's not about solving a problem. It's about solving the problem at hand, but really expanding our breadth of creating an opportunity to solve other problems that may come along. So having that grandiose vision is necessary. But let me go ahead and take a minute to explain what that truly means. It's not about being able to create a backlog of everything possible in terms of, this is what I want, bells and whistles, it should be perfect. This is, 1 to 100 features. It's really about being able to build that muscle of, this is a product we're going to build today. We're going to solve this given problem, but we're going to go back to the customer and start understanding from them, maybe as a way of retrospective, as a way of interviewing, as a part of R&D, to be able to strategically change our vision as needed. Now, I'm going to pause there because this is one of the concepts that I've realized in over 2 decades of my work experience. Sometimes our visions are created at such a high level that they're not first understood, or they're not understood enough to be measured or being broken down into something more tangible. So by the way of me asking, how many of you work in organizations or firms or teams where you truly understand not the page that you're working on or not the business problem that you're trying to solve, but add a vision for the department, or they have a vision for the strategic outlook of how the company is going to grow in the future, or if they have KPIs and KVIs. How many of you have that currently? And don't be shy if you don't have it, because that is another gap that I've seen, that some of the firms do not have visions that can be broken down. I've been there. Thank you for sharing that. Having worked in firms, financial institutions, insurance firms, marketing firms, there are times that we don't take the time to really get everybody together in a room and truly strategize about the vision. Or we may have a vision, but it is so high level that it's really not understood at the development level or the design level. Exactly, Vish. Thank you. What if the vision is not clear? Are we really going back to the drawing board of really dissecting it and understanding how in the world are we going to measure against that vision? Now, that is important for your product mindset, right? And the reason I bring that up is because you need to be able to start from that. And there is an opportunity for us to do that. And it's really about getting everybody together, the key stakeholders and decision makers, before you actually solve for the problem. Be married to the problem, right? It's always my learning that don't be married to the solution, be married to the problem. Your vision really comes from that. You want to be able to really take that to the drawing board and understand that, and also then solve for it and then measure against it. Focus on the growth element, right? One of the key features, in my opinion, about product mindset is just look at this photo that I'm sharing with you, right? You start here, but you're growing incrementally, right? Now, make sure that you take the time to put again, pen to paper of what growth means. If that means more users, if that means more revenue, if that means more usability, if that means better retention of customers, how are you going to truly measure the growth? Ensure that you spend some time on that. How many of you do know the elements of growth for the products that you're creating? Absolutely, Randy. When it comes to vision and growth, that's exactly where you want to focus: personas, use cases, and really, again, going back to the principle of agility, right? Creating something small but impactful, your MVP, getting feedback, and then building on top of it incrementally. Absolutely. So going back to my question, how many of you know what your growth criteria is, or what your acceptance criteria is to see if the product is successful? So I'll give you an example. At a firm that I worked in the past, we had milestones, right? So each milestone showcased the growth that we want to achieve with our product features. Some of those milestones included moving from pilot to production, moving from a controlled use group to a bigger audience, rolling it out to regions. So those are some of the elements that you can use to be able to demonstrate growth in your product. The concept of failing fast, right? Now, failing fast has been some sort of a mantra, in my opinion, the past few years, but I want to kind of pivot it and kind of move it a little bit and say it differently. Instead of failing fast, let's focus in, on learning quickly. It's important for us to fail fast, but if you put a lens of, I really want to learn from my experiences, I think that's where we should be really bringing the onus on. There is a big push towards incremental and iterative development where you do get a chance to understand, not from your mistakes, but understand from feedback, right? And that's where MVPs and personas can come in as well. So that really applies to your product mindset as well. Why do you think incremental delivery of features or incremental delivery of or incremental feedback loops are important when it comes to product mindset or delivering value? Why do you think we should move away from the big bang deployment of a product or a feature or a project and move to more incremental value delivery? Absolutely. Manage risk better, realize value sooner, ensure investment is worth it, easy to measure, short wins. Yes, absolutely. I love the morale part. That is amazing. Customer faith. So the trust, right? I am big on people when it comes to project delivery, product delivery. Over the last how many ever years I've been, working, I've realized people are the foundation for our success. So the failing fast mentality or the learning quick mentality really helps with that growth mindset, right? You move away from that fixed mindset into growth mindset. And it's not about just acquiring skills to do better. It's about that team morale. It's about short wins. It's about celebrating. It's about bringing customer into the loop. It's about calling the customer and saying, hey, we got a product feature. I want you to take a look at it, give me some feedback so I can go back and revise it if needed. And if the customer says, no, this is not what I asked for, guess what? They would appreciate you better. Instead of waiting for 3 months to get something in front of them, if you deliver something to them in 2 weeks or 1 week or 1 hour, just imagine that interaction and collaboration that builds. Imagine the trust that comes with that process. So again, these concepts are not Agile or project management. These are truly going back to the basics of delivering customer value. Greater good. Now, I talked about what I concluded from my study when I presented the brands to my family and friends in terms of having a reaction from them. I realized we do not focus a lot on this concept of greater good. I will say the last few years, especially the pandemic, if that's taught us anything, and it's taught us a great deal, It's about being socially responsible. A lot of products that you see right now in the market really speak to a customer from an ethical and moral value perspective. So, from my humble opinion, I think we need to do a little bit more in terms of really addressing the greater good of the product features as well as the customers using them. And I'll give you an example. We moved away as a family from styrofoam products to more recyclable paper products as well as palm and bamboo products. So if we have parties or birthday parties for the kids, I no longer go for the styrofoam products. I do invest in bamboo products or palm products. And for me as a family member, as well as for my family, that is something we are trying to do better for the environment. Now, ever since I started doing that, I've realized that there's a big old market out there for products that are more, socially responsible as well as better for our environment. Who knew, right? So the reason I bring that as an example is it may seem trivial, but the product company that I'm using, ever so often, they start releasing these newer features to the products that I'm using, like spoons and forks and plates and cups. They're making them, snazzier and jazzier, that I really want to use them for parties and events now. So the point that I'm trying to make here is it starts small, but then when you start building on top of it, you really do have room and space to be able to address those greater good opportunities for the customer. So I'm going to pause there and have you react to that. What are your thoughts about focusing on the greater good? And that may apply to whatever your intrinsic values are, right? When it comes to product development. Are you working for a firm that is focusing on that? Or do you know of products that are focusing on that? Agreed. There is a big return of investment, right? It makes us feel good as consumers that we are trying to preserve the planet in this case. And guess what? I'm going to go back to that product, right? So there's a customer retention piece right there. So again, don't forget that when you're trying to solve for the problem, you're allowing an opportunity to get feedback on what is it that the customer really gets motivated by. Absolutely, Don. Definitely. And that is where you want to make sure that there's space for candid feedback. Like expressed in the use case study that I did with my family, what Disney meant to my 7-year-old was drastically different for my husband, right? For my 7-year-old, it was magical, it was sentimental, it was emotional. For my husband, it was better customer service. He loved the efficiency. He didn't want to be in line because they're fast passes. So you want to be able to go back to your customer and audience and truly understand what is it that they want before you start building your features. MVP is great, but allow an opportunity to build on top of it. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Dominic. Appreciate it. All right. Empathy. Now, this is a big one. The last couple of years, what they've taught me is that we need to be intentional about empathy. Sometimes empathy does not come naturally to people, and that's okay. So I coach a lot of folks outside of my 8 to 5. And one of the things that I talk about is being empathetic. Now, being empathetic truly means, in a very abbreviated way, is put yourself in other people's shoes, right? Try to understand their problem and really be intentional about it. If COVID, pandemic, lack of social responsibility and everything that was going on last year, especially in the US, has taught me anything, it is to make space for empathy. And that translates into customer behavior, and that has to translate into the features we develop, right? And you will see that from a leadership perspective, there is a big push in the industry to be inclusive, to ensure that you're focusing on diversity of race, gender, yes, but also experiences. Being empathetic towards the folks who are underrepresented, being empathetic towards their products, their needs, and their problems so we can solve better. So this may seem like a soft skill, but let me tell you, it has quickly become a technical skill when it comes to product development. I think somebody talked about, we want to rely on the products we develop. Yes, we want to develop products that are resilient, right? We want to make sure that our products and the features we develop actually stand the test of time. We don't want any one night wonders, if you will. We want to make sure that we can truly ensure that our products are resilient for, to be able to address market disruptions, to be able to pivot if needed. And that's where the agility comes in, right? The MVP structure is there, but you're really building on top of that. You're evolving the features of the product based on customer input. There's a question there by Dia or Deja. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. How can we folks who have a lack of empathy become more sensitive and inclusive? I can talk about that. I actually gave a talk on inclusive leadership last month, and I'll be happy to share some information on that offline if you connect with me on LinkedIn. But I want to address this real quickly. You have to be intentional. Self-awareness is very important. And quite honestly, you need to treat feedback as a gift. If you have somebody in your circle that you trust, maybe it is a direct of yours, it's a peer of yours, it's a friend of yours, it's a spouse, it's children. I gained so much from my 7-year-old and 13-year-old, and they honestly have made me more empathetic, I feel, because they see world a different way. My parents see the world a different way. So the moment you realize that you're lacking empathy, I think that's half the battle won. There are so many courses out there. There are so many user groups out there. Get a coach, get a mentor, and work with them in trying to build that muscle of being more inclusive, being more accepting, being more tolerating of different opinions and culture. I would love to do that. I actually did give a talk on that. It is very important for you to truly be intentional about that. And I always say feedback is a gift. Sometimes feedback can sting. We are humans, you're right. I get feedback sometimes and I kind of take a defensive approach to it, right? In terms of, well, I can't do that. Not that I'm perfect, but I'm sure I didn't do that. But then sometimes you have to take a step back and say, maybe what you said, I guess you do have that information. Maybe what you said did not translate well to the person who was receiving that message. I actually gave a talk for our public relations group here in Charlotte, and it was about how do you create your message based on the audience, right? We have 75 plus people here, and we have different schools of thought. We have folks who translate the words I'm saying into their native language before they truly understand what I'm saying, right? I'm honored to say that I speak more than 3 languages. There are times I go back to my native language in my mind and I'm like, maybe this is what he meant. Maybe this is what she meant. 91 people, there you go. So it's important for you to truly understand your audience, which goes back to your customer, right? If your customer says, I don't understand what you're saying, have them repeat it back to you so you understand what they are not able to understand. So that is where resiliency also comes in. Your products have to account for the fact that they will stand the test of your customers, and your customer base may change based on the environment we put them in. So I will leave you with this. I truly believe that value is the true north we should all be chasing, right? Establish KVIs, your key value indicators. What does value mean to your customer? Now, it doesn't have to mean one thing. It could be a variety of different things, right? We all saw right here, even through our chat window, value means different things to different people. So make sure you actually establish that, because only then you're able to measure, right? So the second point here, focus on intended value rather than ability to achieve. I can say, I can create this really cool, jazzy product for you and it looks really beautiful, but if nobody uses it, what good is that product? So make sure you establish your KVI and you measure that against the established indicators. Only then you'll know if you're being successful or not. Pivot and redefine value if needed. Ever so often, your value will change or your value proposition will change because your customers will change. Their values will change. They will go through life experiences where they may not use your product anymore. Go back to them and ask them what else do they want, right? That's where the feedback loop comes in. So make sure that you're truly going back and pivoting if needed. Don't be afraid to change. Incremental delivery is a must. We talked about that. We minimize risk. We control assumptions. We are more cognizant of our impediments. We are more empathetic. We're truly in line with what our customer needs, right? We are creating that trust between our customer when it comes to truly delivering what they want to solve their problem. Focus on progress, not perfection. I will say I used to be one of those folks that were perfectionists. Even now, I'm always changing my font. I'm creating my slide decks. And that's okay. I'm not saying don't do that, but always incentivize progress. Don't incentivize perfection. If there is a way that you've measured and your key value indicator says, hey, we're going to move from 25 users to 91 users, that's progress. We would have wanted 100, but 91 is progress. Incentivize that. Make sure your people know that. Don't forget internal value. And what I mean is that your internal customer, right? Your employees, your directs, focus on your people. Products, tools will change, right? Frameworks will change. People will remain. If anything, you need to make sure that you're creating an environment of empowerment for your people. If your people are happy, your products are going to be created better and your customers are going to be happy. And of course, last but not least, account for risks and assumption losses. Don't forget about that. Always have that in the back of mind. Even if your product is the sexiest product out there, the jazziest product out there, make sure you don't lose sight of the risks that come along with the changes that you make. And with that, my name is Riddhi Gupta. I'm on LinkedIn, and I would love to take some questions if anybody has any.
Thank you very much. While people are writing their questions in the chat window, I'll start off with a few questions and also comments. First of all, I want to say thanks for the talk and the inclusion of empathy in this talk. I've seen that more and more from our speakers, and it's very encouraging. Mm-hmm. Just a couple of months ago, we had Troy McGinnis come and speak to us, and his topic was using metrics in Agile, which is a dry technical topic. Yeah. But the first 15 minutes of his presentation was about the importance of creating a psychologically safe environment for your team. If you don't have that, metrics won't work, because people won't. If management is using those metrics as a club to beat you up, then people are going to not report something good. So I love that more and more speakers are highlighting that and stressing the importance of it. Also, one of the things that you end up here with the fact that adding value is the most important thing. And I feel like PMI, which I love that they're giving us this platform, and I love PMI, but I felt like they led us astray in trying to convince us that the triple constraint was the most important thing, that scope, schedule, and budget was the most important thing. I worked with a lot of PMOs who never felt like it was their job to measure value. They felt like once they delivered whatever the project was, they just walked away from it. Yeah. And I'm like, that was wrong.
Yeah. And can I comment on that real quick? Because I actually gave a talk on project versus product. And I am, like I said, I am a PMI certified, project manager, program manager, even though I will admit I haven't kept up with my PDUs just because, life got in the way and I kind of moved into a different direction. Projects are necessary. You want to make sure that there is a time-bound aspect to delivering value. But the one thing that we forget, to your point, is we forget the customer value. If, as a project manager, you get incentivized on making sure that your project is within time, within scope, within budget, right? I'm a project manager, right? And let me tell you, 99% of my projects are neither on scope, not within the time allotted, not within the budget. And the reason being because we do not create that environment of retroactively going back to the customer and asking them if everything that we're doing is right on track. So having said that, this is not a way for us to diss project management. We have projects day to day. I have a project coming up this weekend. I've got to paint a room. That's a project for me. But what we want to focus on is the value aspect of it. So project is time bound, right? Products are value bound. And to your point, to be able to create that psychological safety environment, and that kind of goes back to the question that maybe Don asked, is sometimes you don't know what you don't know. As a leader, you're trying in your own special way to create that environment of trust and safety. But if you go and incentivize people on being Cape Crusaders or saving the day because they work 10 hours extra, that's not cool. And I actually had the conversation with my husband yesterday that why do we need to incentivize folks because they worked more or they've given up their personal lives and they're working weekends? Why don't we incentivize them on being proactive, on asking those dumb, stupid questions to the customers to understand the problem better? Why don't we incentivize on innovation? Why don't we incentivize on progress? So it is not a silver bullet, but this is something that we intentionally have to do. You have to be aware of these little triggers, these little flags of, that old school mentality of black box, give them the code to develop, test it, hand off, no customer interaction. And there's been a push in the industry for that. I think it's just a matter of folks like us to truly understand where those gaps are and addressing those. But yeah, I completely agree with what your speaker talked about, psychological safety. You can try the different ways, but you have to pivot if it doesn't work as well.
And I like what you just said about incentives. Too many companies reward the person that worked all weekend to midnight to get something done, as opposed to the person that went home at 4:30 on Friday because she discovered a better way to do it.
Yeah.
So incentives matter, and I hope companies, maybe COVID is helping people get religion in terms of helping them realize we need to incentivize the behaviors that are healthy for our employees versus the ones that are discriminatory or destructive to our staff.
Absolutely. And Powell, I just want to take a minute to kind of look at this reasons for project not properly tied to market, wrong, missing project. Absolutely. I completely agree with the success criteria, right? But I will also add one thing. We need to allow that to happen organically. If I'm a customer, I should not be put in a room for 2 days and asked for requirements because I will forget some stuff, or I may not have enough information with me to provide that. So why don't we do that on that cadence where I can come back to you and redefine my project definition or add to my MVP? So I think that goes back to that mindset, right? We talked about really being able to create that mindset of flexibility, that agility, that nimbleness. Make that happen. So I actually hosted a project update call today at work, and I had our folks come on out and talk about, again, very simple accomplishments, things we need to be looking out for, risks we need to be aware of, new opportunities. And we're going to do that every week. So it was very different from a traditional, project management call, because I want to hear the nuggets. I want to hear, how are we tracking to our definition of done? How are we tracking to our success criteria? What are we missing? What are the roadblocks we need to really focus on, right? And what are new opportunities that we can proactively go and chase? So change the conversation, move away from red, green, yellow, which is still necessary in a way, but add to that in terms of what can we do better? What are the key accomplishments? What are we looking out for? Those are things we have to do ourselves.
Yeah, and Paul's saying the same thing. With Agile, defining a project requirements becomes a constant process rather than one session. Absolutely, it's definitely iterative. I'm going to say something controversial, and I want to get your opinion on it. One of the issues that I have with Scrum is they place an enormous amount of power on the product owner. Like the product owner controls the access to customers and the product owner. And I think that's bad. I think the entire project team, and especially the analysts and developers, should be exposed to stakeholders, customers, as opposed to everything coming through the product owner.
Yeah. No, I think you hit it on the head there. And maybe my response is going to be controversial and I may get reported to our Agile leaders. I've been in Agile transformations for over 12 years. I started out in Scrum, evolved to Safe, Kanban, Lean Agile Coach, all of that. I treat these frameworks as guardrails. Now, in real life, I would want one person as a product owner, product manager to let me know, if I have any questions, go to them for impediments, roadblocks, what have you. But when it comes to backlog refinement, when it comes to review, when it comes to, really doing a system demo, I want the end users. And since I've been leading transformations for a while now, I'm a big proponent of getting the right stakeholders to the table and not having a mouthpiece at the table. Now, I will say this, there needs to be accountability driven, right? If 5 people are at the table and all of them raise their hands and say, well, no, we're just here to share experiences, I need to know who I can reach out to be able to really understand different perspectives. And if that's a product owner, product manager, great. If that's a BA, great. If that's a developer, great. For me, it doesn't matter what title they have. And this is my saying, don't be married to a role, be married to your responsibilities. You can quote me on that. I end up saying that at every session I host, every speech I give, because at the end of the day, I want to get things done, right? So if you're a SME on something, I want to be able to come to you and talk to you about it. That's a product owner, great. But at the end of the day, if there's a user group who's going to be using the said product, I want them at the table. So completely agree with your observations. And over the years, I do treat these frameworks as guardrails. I love SAFE in a way that it addresses different layers. I do feel sometimes I'm not able to use the entire framework. So I choose to use what makes sense to me, but that's just Riddhi's view of the world.
That's one of the things that I like about Disciplined Agile from Scott Ambler, in that one of their principles is choice is good. A framework should not be a straitjacket. It should be an enabler. And Paul's with us. If a product owner is the ultimate translator between customer and service provider, it requires that product owner to have genius skills. Something you said also reminds me of a saying from Lyle Feisel, and that is, your job is bigger than the summary of the tasks of your job. And you're saying the same thing, is that you have to embrace the problem. So independent of what your job description says, according to HR, your job is bigger than that, and you need to embrace, the larger challenges of your job, right?
Absolutely. And I'll be the first one to say, I have never stuck to the box of my job title. I have gotten coffee for my team members every Wednesday because it motivates them. We have done happy hours over last year, via Zoom, because that is one way I promote inclusion, as well as just some downtime because of all the stuff that was going on around us. So people may say, well, that's really not your job. It is my job if it motivates people. It is my job if it gets, stuff done. It is my job if it promotes collaboration. So I enjoy having my title and my responsibilities and my role. But at the end of the day, it's really how you connect with people and how you get, that value out the door. So, and that also translates to another topic, which is around professional development. Your leader, your manager is not responsible for your professional development alone. You have to take the first step. And how do you do that? You step outside the box of your role. That's just been my kind of MO. I've never stuck to the confines of, what my job description has been. If I go back to every job description that I've had, I'll probably, cross out some things and add more things.
Okay. You and I are very similar. Before COVID, every Friday for 5 years, I had bought donuts from Dunkin' Donuts for my team. It's just, I don't know, most people like donuts, and it's just a way to connect and support the people. So, all right, let's go ahead and wrap things up. We'll wrap up a couple minutes early, give people some time back, give them the opportunity to take a break before their next Zoom meeting at 1 o'clock. Thank you very much. This was a fantastic presentation. Really enjoyed having you. And I think we're definitely going to have you back. There was some requests for some additional information in different areas. So I really appreciate it. Thanks for being with us, and we'll keep in touch. Thanks everybody for attending today.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Good night. Bye.